special guest tonight. I am Ben Bookie, and Talora is here as well. And I'm going to turn this over to her right away to introduce our guest and our topic for tonight.
So we have a very special person here tonight, Michelle Vera. Is that how you pronounce it? I want to make sure
Yeah.
I said the last name right, because you only know people when you work for the state. You only know them by
Right.
their first name, or you call them their last name. That's it.
Exactly.
So we've known her probably about, I don't know, has it been 14 years? 20? Because I think 2012 is when, yeah, and we met in
Something like
Kate.
that. And
She has she has a phenomenal healing journey to talk about tonight. She also has been spending her time doing, advocating for mental health and domestic violence for the awareness and making sure like our courts are aware of it. She's got so much, so I'm going to let her describe that. So welcome, Michelle.
thank you. All right. Well, I was just telling Ben and Laura, first of all, thank you very much for the time to give me, to be able to share. I have testimonies galore. So it's like, which one you want to hear? But the whole thing all together was being able to help people understand that a lot of times when we're facing battles and we're feeling unsafe, and then there's just things that we don't see when we're in survivor mode or when we're in situations that we're just questioning our own selves um, and our own mental health, trying to get the help. For myself, going through domestic violence and working for the state of Michigan Protective Services to centralize intake investigations ongoing to resigning for centralized intake. And that would have been almost 9 years for working for the state of Michigan, right at the same time when all my experience, my situation happened when it comes to trauma in January. So, January 2020. So, when that actually happened, it was more of the battles that I understand now why, the purpose, and how long it's taken me to get to where I am. I was nowhere even understanding anything, um, even understanding how my parents' own generational cycles, how it impacted my own life. My mom and dad. My dad's American, from born and raised in Texas, and immigrated over here. And then my mom immigrated from the Philippines. I never really quite understood how much of the history that my mom had when it came up to her past. Later on in high school, I remember learning her history of domestic violence herself. Not so much, but the battles, and of course, her emphasizing, the Filipino culture is just, make sure we're respecting your elders and you're always fighting for your kids, make sure that God goes first and your education, like trying to always, you know, teach us the values of what's important. But at the same time, because she was also in survivor mode, she was very like selfless, like, just walking and taking a lot and just seeing her experiences and then later learning as I really just learned this is this past year. I was talking with her and just to hear that my grandma, her mom, was actually a victim of domestic violence herself before my grandfather passed away when my mom was like, think I want to say she was 10 or so. And she went through ACEs like a lot. So when my mom ended up coming, and starting a life over here, it was like she was already in survivor mode. And from what I witnessed growing up, for me, it was very like this is like it wasn't how would you say? I wouldn't say unhealthy, but I think it was more she took on a lot more roles and a lot more things that she shouldn't have. But if we were able to understand the importance of that cycle at the very beginning to understand how it impacts you, and how it just continues on, and you could share, you got to do all of this, you got to work all of this, and, you know, it's impacting your own health, giving everything to your family, doing everything to everybody else, but not focusing on yourself. That's something I stuff, just for her survival and being pushing herself to the max. And that's what I was brought up to. So I admit my will's a little hard to stop when I'm focused, but it's like it comes, it has I guess it would just say that when the time comes, I do have a Peoplehood United that's an agency, or a nonprofit that I'll explain later. But one of the biggest pieces is going and breaking down ACEs. I'm bringing my parents' stories and how I impacted every year, because I am third generation in the trauma cycle. And I'm determined to break the cycle because of the impact that my children have already faced in their young lives. And it's important that people start understanding that if we could start focusing on the impact of adverse childhood experiences and seeing the true need of how it impacts us later down, that could really help with, lowering a lot of issues in today's world. A lot of it's just unity, education. And for what I ended up starting in my whole journey is accumulated probably 10 years or more documentation, my experiences, research, studies, all the way from, the whole epigenetics, the transgenerational epigenetics, inheritance, and how if people were more aware when you're stressed and during your pregnancy. I was during that time, my pregnancy in 2020, I was pregnant. From this research I've done, how many parents are aware that your mental health, especially if it's very, you're struggling during a pregnancy, it can impact the development of the fetus growing, the mutation in the DNA. And it's like something that it's not really pushed out to mothers or families to say mental health is more important. If you really want to try to prevent it, let's make sure that we take care of that. And women have to understand that it's okay. During the time when you're pregnant, our bodies are everywhere. So it's okay to admit it. You don't want to do it on your own, because that stress that you have, it can pass on. So sorry, I could go on with a lot more breakdown, and just seeing that I do recommend the whole, I totally would recommend the ACEs questionnaire, to have it done all over the states, get a new update, especially since COVID, because if you look on the whole trends and based on including with my studies, it's like that's going to show a lot of what's happening. And it needs to be a united effort for everybody to get involved, especially if people want to break those cycles and those generational, curses, to really understand that this is why it passes. It continues because nothing is being done. Nobody is wanting to, even take accountability to admit any wrongs or any faults. Um, a lot of projections, a lot of judgments are being stated and really shared as if it's truth, but the people who are speaking it have either never experienced it, nor do they have any firsthand, like studies or even involvement. So it's kind of like that's what's contributing towards the stigma. It's like you can't go over here and try to say you're going to support people. You want to go do this, for so many people about mental health, but yet people are contributing by adding their judgments and projections, only causing those vulnerable populations to feel even more scared, to even fight those battles alone. And if you really look at the whole rates and trends of suicide, it's still high. It's still on the high end. And makes you wonder why. Well, ACEs, folks. And if we could get that, having people start seeking out the proper professional mental health care, that's going to make a big difference. And I highly suggest those who suffer more from like a long history of trauma, like severe trauma when they were young and they're still triggered as adults, that's probably going to be something that they're going to be wanting to see, a mental health professional who is trauma informed certified, because that's a whole other different approach. And trust me, I seen it for myself. I experienced it, and I have my children and two very difficult ones, which it was hard for them to even talk when, for their own experience of ACEs growing up. They had to be quiet. So if somebody, for whatever was going on, it was just something that was emphasized they couldn't share. So I was never able to get anything out. And when you're trying to tell everybody something's going on and you're telling so many different professionals, therapists, um, even providers and even family court, like you're telling everybody, schools, staff, it's like the lack of trauma informed is like all around, where it's like, if you never experience life as a victim, you will never understand how unsafe it feels for a stranger to come in and pop up some personal questions. Like, who's going to want to go over there and say, what's going on at home? Like, is a child, like we were in that, we know child welfare.
Right.
We know our experiences. So we're not going to have a child. Oh, yeah, mom had her boyfriend over and they were drinking in front of me. Or, you're not going to have, maybe another child to say, yeah, let me tell you that I was beaten up this many times. Like, they're not going to just open up. It's,
They want
it's
to protect.
right. So it's like they're in defense mode. They
Yeah.
don't want to build any trust, because if you really break it down, who was it? Was it Erickson? I believe it was Erickson in the lifespan, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Eric Erickson in the lifespan. I did a whole thing on that one
Trust.
too.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
trust. If
Mhm.
you miss that trust in those crucial years, makes you wonder, well, what's, to stop the
I
trust.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted, just for some of the people that maybe don't understand, but just the ACEs and just maybe kind of define trauma informed to what that would look like.
Oh, absolutely. So basically, the best way to kind of break it out for ACEs, I'm trying to pull my information up here too, so I could provide some stats. Um, ACEs is basically, so it's adverse childhood experiences, the way that we know as childhood trauma. So anything that we have experienced in our lives that makes us feel scared, like gathers all those mixed emotions. I have a definition on here, so it can be quoted correctly. But it's just those events where it's really it impacts you to the point where you're feeling unsafe, you're feeling scared. You don't know what you do, but when you experience it at such a young age, it's like it ends up building up a lot more. It can impact, like from the research that I've done, when it goes on to years of living with multiple issues with trauma, mental health issues that have not even been addressed or not, talked or spoken about, it can increase it can decrease your lifespan, not getting that right help. And with the whole thing with ACEs of what I've been sharing on my page, it has the whole breakdown where it leads to a lot, ACEs. So the ACEs questionnaire, so the trauma whole thing, there's a whole questionnaire that's broken down to explain, you get a tally of how the things that we experience as young, they want to see how, if it's impacting, if you experience it young, and comparing how it is to your life today. And there's just been a lot of stuff that's been going on where it can decrease your lifespan. I'm pulling up the whole thing. So Give me 1 second, but please, while I look this up, go
While
ahead.
you're doing that, I mean, if anybody's interested in the ACEs, you can just type it in Google.
Yeah.
Just put ACEs. It will. There's a lot of different sites that will give it to you, and you can go take it. And it's not going to give you a diagnosis, so you don't have to worry about that. It's going to give you the opportunity to say, okay, like maybe there are some things here, and it will encourage the next steps, like for you. And so, so you don't. It's not going to be like, oh no, like I'm I'm a hopeless case now. It's not that. It's to help you really identify and be self-reflective about what has happened in my life and what do I need to do with that now.
Thank you. And you're the professional, shoot, in this matter. So
Or you can
that was
schedule an
great.
appointment with me and do an intake, and I might give you the ACEs. You never know, because it's one of the tools we use. So
No, that's great because I mean, I could go over here and it's like, well, my whole interpretation, because I give a whole presentation, it's like I can't break it down in like just minutes. So I thank you for that because it's like it's just the whole layers of, for us to really understand. It's almost like an awakening. Like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Like, and it took me a long time, and it took me a long time to also get to where I'm at from the healing, you know, praying, really having to change my life around where I had to move out of my own hometown just to be able to get the healing, when you're battling with so much and the projections and judgments are there, you don't have, the support that you really were hoping. It's like God was making it more obvious. He was moving me. And the more I didn't want to leave, the more God was showing, nope, you're gonna do it. And my whole thing has been just one after the other, like miracle after the miracle, and I wouldn't be here without surrendering and really stopping the life of being that lukewarm believer. I learned, I hold myself accountable, I admit my own doings, and it's like anything I share, I only share from experience because I don't want anybody to learn. Like, I'd rather share my testimonies to also show examples of my choices and how it impacted me and how, ultimately, you want to break it down, bring it to church. Ultimately, God is in control because, let me bring you, can I share this testimony? Because this is a really big one of mine. Okay. My biggest, let me take a drink. Hold on.
Okay.
Sorry. Because this is my biggest testimony ever. I remember when I was young, I was one of those girls who was like a late bloomer, right? So late 15, I think that was when, whatever. So I always had issues. And then, this is more, sorry, female things. But when I was in AmeriCorps, and I served as an AmeriCorps at Vista in the greater Boston area, in which I did that for 2 years. And our focus was community engagement, service learning within higher education. And each individual, we were placed at in different schools. Mine was 1 year I did Bunker Hill Community College. The other year I did Mount Ida Community College. I'm sorry, Mount Ida in Newton. But we have like members in Harvard as well as UMass. Like it was really like it was awesome. We have phenomenal trainers and everything else. I'm so sorry. That's my trauma brain and my ADHD. I was gonna say something. It was like, what was I talking about? Oh,
I do that all the time.
I
All the time.
know. So that's a complication from trauma. So please forgive me, but remind me at times. I ended up getting a diagnosis then. I think it was 2023. No, 2003, 2004, about concerns with my ability to later have children. The whole infertility issue started around then. Maybe it was 2004 or whatever. And I wasn't really at the time. I was, I was graduated from college. This was my first experience outside after college. wonderful experience. And we took on roles as service learning coordinators as well as, community engagement administrators. I mean, those were our roles, even though we were still AmeriCorps Vistas, but it gave us a lot of experience. But moving on later in life, in 2009, I was married to my then husband, and I was at this point, I was battling a lot of issues on my own, behind like a lot of the stuff that was going on, just the verbal and more of that. And things just changed after marriage. But because of how things were, I was very lonely and I was in Texas. So my whole support was in Michigan. But I had, few of my dad's from there, so I was able, I do have my aunt, uncle, both of them, aunts and uncles that were living there. My close aunt was there, my Aunt Judy. So her like it's a long time, which I'll tell you later. She ended up training myself so much and giving me mentorship for mental health, especially with NAMI down in San Antonio and she's working on the faith-based section. She started something down in San Antonio. How is the fact that she was training me all this stuff back then for years? And then I find out later, I knew that she's actually one of the, what is that, Hall of Fame of Michigan, one of the Women Hall of Fame of Michigan. And then I found out just last month how involved my aunt was. She was actually one of the commissioners or in Lansing. Yeah, I was like, she was civil rights, activist, but she was all about just trying to do the right thing and, being her faith as well. It's like I learned, like I didn't even know how much I was learning from her, but I was trained. But back to the point, 2009, 2010, I was that person who I guess you would call me controlling. I wanted to be the one to make the decisions. What I wanted to have a child. I had a good job. I worked as a worked in higher education, and I was needing at least a comfort. So when I'm down there, I was already planning on doing, going through the whole assisted, infertility with a specialist. So my insurance was covered because they had to keep on doing another diagnosis to make sure I was infertile. So I have that one. But my then husband, he was against it. He was against the whole assisted, trying to go seek infertility help and just wanted to have it natural. But for myself, I wanted it to go my way too. So I went ahead and proceeded. No, whether my husband wants to do it or not, and I'm telling you this as an experience for being humble. God humbled me. He taught me, don't be prideful. Don't try to go over here and control things. If it's not supposed to be, then, there's going to be repercussions. Like ultimately, that's what I learned the hard way. Because when that happened, I ended up going through, my then husband was against the fertility, whole treatment, everything else. I happened to go, I think that month or the following month to one of those life screenings just to do where they check your arteries and stuff. And the tech just happened to say, oh, we normally don't do this, but you have a nodule. You have she had me see it. And, she's like, we don't, but she advised me to go see the doctor. Okay. And then I think it was by April, we were scheduled to go in for our second infertility treatment. I just happened to go do a biopsy, just I think weeks before, but I received the diagnosis probably the week before around there, right before the second infertility treatment, that it was thyroid cancer. So not only did I have thyroid cancer, I'm about to be meeting the doctor, and my then husband was with me. He was already opposed. And in my mind, I'm like, I am not going to tell this doctor. I'm just going to, because that's how, when it comes up, when you're battling so much behind the scenes, not having the true support or even people understanding what you're going through. I see it now after I did, a lot of work on myself with professionals, inner work, as well as my spiritual, relationship. I really, I really lost myself a lot. It was like I just wanted that comfort. And the doctor really had to, I wasn't gonna lie. I'm not one person that lies, but that doctor did try to get the information out and try to ask me, has there been anything that happened since? And I'm trying to avoid answer. What do you mean? So it was more like that happened. Ended up telling him, and then he gave me a whole lecture. Why would you want to be bringing a child into this world if here you are not even trying to take care of yourself? And but it was just like it just I thought it was it. But then I think that was April. I think by May or whatever, or June, around that time, I knew I had to go in for we were going to go for the surgery to remove it. And I remember I asked my then supervisor about going on FMLA, and whatever happened, my employer, they had some budget cuts, and my position ended up being eliminated. Like, I want to say probably shortly after, in June. Sorry, hold on. I'm trying to look at my phone. I don't know why it's blinking. And so it was just so interesting where it was like I thought I was like God really humbled me because I was all about like my way. But when I ended up getting that in June, I ended up having my position eliminated. I ended up having to go thyroidectomy that July. I had radiation treatment that what do you call it? I had it that August. And it was just like, okay, I give up. I surrender to God. I went through everything and thinking that my way, like when God really humbles you, you learn, like, because everything I had, it was like in a way, Job, but in a sense where you had the job, you had the money, you had no concerns, everything's fine. Why not? It's like that's what I have. And it was just all within months, all the way until it's like God really put me down on my knees and to show me that you need to trust me. And I was more trusting my own words. It's like we have to be careful what we say, what we speak, because it does come to life. And I've done that, and I have whole other testimonies to tell people. It's like, please be careful. Because I was that girl in college who my friends all laugh. I used to tell them, I don't want to be that slave around the kitchen, where you're over there cooking for all the kids and it's like, gosh, all I need to do is maybe I need to get a bowl, like a big old tub and be like Oliver Twist where I'm just grabbing it. It's like nonstop where you're always busy as mom. But all the things I used to say, yeah, I want to be a career mom and I don't want to be stuck home. I want to do all this and that. Like, it's funny because even my college friends would tell me, like everybody would say, wow, when you had kids, I was surprised because that was my mentality. I didn't want to, and it was a lot because of what I experienced as my own childhood for me. And that's why it's like, I could break that down in a whole other part. But it was just like, then I wasn't aware of why I was like that. Now I get it.
So how many kids do you have or children?
Oh,
Yeah. How many kids do
before
you
we
have?
go
Yeah.
there, let me tell you this. So
Okay.
when that happened, because this was the whole point. When that happened, and I went through radiation treatment, uh, we ended up staying with my in-laws at that time. I knew I was heading back home, but I really ended up just really trusting God. And I remember we went to church, Faith Church in San Antonio, Texas. Oh, I love Pastor Randy, but he was over there preaching, telling us about the story of Abraham and Sarah. And he's over there telling us, if you want, if you're a Sarah and you want that baby, you claim it. And I was just like, like, I'm going to do that. So if I'm over there, I claim it. I was like, pray, please. And I think it was within like probably around 2 weeks. It was within that month, I ended up getting a positive pregnancy. My son was all natural, naturally conceived. With my infertility, yeah. And I was not supposed to have kids. I have 4. And
Yep, that's God. That's God.
yeah, because it's like,
I know.
that's when I knew. It's like Western medicine said I couldn't have, but God ultimately had control. So,
You were talking about in the beginning about your mom and your grandmother also experiencing domestic violence.
oh, yeah.
Um, what about like with your childhood? Can you kind
Well,
of?
with my childhood, I have to say my mom became that extra, um, she like became the extra, like the opportunity to break the cycles, the generational cycles. Because on my dad's side, my dad was, I guess he would be more of the scapegoat. My dad was my dad would, everybody would say in the family, he was the one that was always beaten. So my dad was a child of childhood abuse. So, and from his story, as well as, him in our talks, it's like he told me a lot of his story. My grandfather ended up, getting into alcohol, but nobody quite understood. My grandfather was also a child of childhood abuse too, who ended up growing up without a father, I believe my dad was saying. And I believe it was like an uncle ended up taking care of him, but it was just like that whole pattern, you know? So hearing how that was, knowing my dad's history and seeing how my dad was, he was the fighter. He was the fighter of the family, and he would even take the hits for the other siblings. But the big part was that it was an issue then because nobody really understood. But my father, he ended up having that issue with the aggression, with the whole fighting outside. It kept getting worse and worse throughout the years when he was growing up. Yeah. So it's kind of like that is a generational cycle. If she was raised into allowing my dad to have alcohol, or if she was raised to allow my dad to use that form of physical discipline, I wouldn't have doubted, that we would have, especially my brothers they would have been what my dad, you know? But it was my mom that did not. Yeah, she didn't allow that. We were raised with a lot of the Filipino culture, which was, a blessing in a way because it's just very strict, very strict, but yet humble and just passionate. And I'm just thankful for all cultures, actually. Um, but yeah, seeing how that impacted my father, and it just made me more understand the whole generational trauma cycles altogether in different levels. And which is why, with my experience with my children, it's like not many people could really understand the difference between behaviors, and trying to see if it's something with ADHD or, maybe it's something with autism. But for what I experienced, witness as well, literally a case study of my own, and then studies, it's like I actually could tell the difference between a child with autism and a child, you know, with ADHD, or a child impacted with severe trauma. Like that is a quality that not many people will be able to do. And not many parents actually understand that there's no formal medical lab work, blood work to actually give you those diagnoses. And without people being really aware that even the ones that do the diagnosis for autism, if they're not really aware of also the trauma informed, and the children can be misdiagnosed for autism without understanding if they have a history of past abuse. Because if a child has severe history of abuse or neglect, they're going to show similar behavior as a child with ADHD, a child with autism. You know what I mean? It's like they're going to show, they're going to display those not looking, not wanting to talk, just pacing. I mean, just those kind of things. And it's like, if somebody does not have that trauma informed awareness, education, or anything else, it's going to lead to some misdiagnosis or else missing a diagnosis that should have been diagnosed. And that's the reason why I just cannot help but emphasize it's like, I wish I didn't have to know that. I survived 8 years of just nonstop battles with my own children to understand that this wasn't, this isn't autism. You know, it's like the behavior when a child has a history of being exposed to any type of whether DV or even just talking, the denigrating, the disrespect like practices of things that would have a negative impact on the other parent, like the target parent, it can impact the child where it's almost like you're confusing them. And then they lose the trust on who to believe. And to even think about having the whole health screenings to be removed from schools, we know as protective services workers, that could be the only safest place for a child to go to. And it's like, if you're gonna take that place out, how many more children are gonna fall in the system? My children already faced not being heard or protected when I was trying to say, this was going on, all this stuff. And I was reporting since 2019, but it was just, I forgave, but I learned to understand what I need to do, that it's just the whole lack of trauma informed and for people to start going to the proper mental health professionals so they could get that help and they could break those cycles so they don't have to take on the harm, the hurt, the pain, the anger that they experience as children, as they're young. They don't want to pass that on to the next generation and take it out on them. Just like being in a relationship. You don't want to be in a relationship if you're not healed, and then you're going to jump into one where what? You're going to form a trauma bond if you're, if you're like still in trauma mode. I mean, but it's like a whole understanding where it's taken me years, like I said, to get here. And as a woman who has an ACEs score, I probably have a score of over 5. And I lived probably a good, I know for sure, over 35 years with unhealed trauma. So based on stats, I'm trying to build a legacy that Peoplehood United, no matter how long, I'm around, I want it to continue. I don't want any other families to go through that, what we went through.
Is it fair to say that, and thank you for that, that what you dealt with CPS and like the court systems was even more trauma,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's like its own trauma.
I have to admit, I am triggered going to court. Oh gosh. Sorry, it's more because I'm really passionate of just wanting to make sure that everybody understands like mental health issues, breaking the stigma and everything. It needs to
Right.
be a united effort. Like no child is going to be able to get through that if the world is still putting on the stigmas, creating more ACEs on these children, and disregarding that the very issues that's being created are contributing more to the impact of mental health. Because obviously ACEs can include low income, struggling with food. And, people really need to also understand the COVID pandemic. Isolation. Wouldn't we consider that ACE? How many children experience that already? Another example would be bullying, would be terrorism, would be what's the other one? I think you said war. Like those are examples of ACEs. And it's like how much more, and we haven't even got to the other ones where, like it's just like we want to be able to try to create, work together, building, helping counties start up their own mental health, community where it's pretty much their village, you know, bringing, it's like I want Peoplehood United to be the catalyst to be able to take on whatever approach trainings that we have, because with my experience, I was able to, and God directed me to my passion so much, um, to remembering my experiences even before protective services. I did a lot with higher education, career services, I did externship. I was an externship administrator. I also did, I was career services assistant director, moved up to student services. So that was all like working with development to help people understand themselves, leadership goals, but at the same time, putting together events where it's effective and it's unity. It's bringing people together. So everybody, yeah, it's just great to be able to learn that and then remembering my skills for even AmeriCorps, where we did a lot with civic engagement. So it's like I want to be able to pass on a lot of these training ideas, the knowledge I've gained. I know my short term is unfortunately increasing a little bit. I just want to be able to share everything so it doesn't go missed. I have way too much experience and knowledge from all over. It's like, please, let's unite. We're not here to do anything other than let's help start up these counties and create a village, because literally we need a safe village, as it takes a village to raise a child. um, Children, adults, especially parents of special needs, they need a support. There's no villages. How do I know? Because I'm one of them. And it's like even trying to meet with domestic violence, survivors ourselves too. It's like even having a safe place for us to even gather with our own children. It's like, how many places are there? I'm so thankful for those agencies that are out there that take that extra step and offer it. Like bless them, because it's like there's not many. And I'm all about I'm a visionary. I like to share, and people with the right hearts, them wanting to do this for the right reasons versus wanting to do it for profit. I rather bless, a lot of those ideas and things to those people who I know that will take it and take off and make something their own and grow. Like, let's just work together, make it happen. Like it shouldn't matter about anybody. I mean, there's too much competition in the world today, unfortunately, in any field. But it's also because it's like in society alone, you get it. There's no opportunity. It's like everybody's trying to survive. So it's like, let's just try to work with each other, and let's try to teach more about the ACEs. Because really, if we could start on letting people identify those concerns, they could start working on their own health and start doing what they can and being able to check themselves when they're dealing with discipline with a child, to understand you got to regulate your emotions. Why would you want to go over there and be all fully angry and everything else when you're about to yell at your little child? No, you take the time to cool down, ground yourself before you approach. So it's a lot of those things that everybody out there's so many, and it's just, let us help people so that way we could show you guys this is your people, and then show the community members, let them know that these are your safe people. Now you're not alone. There's no excuse, because together we're going to do this. We're going to help each other. So,
Well,
So
and I
your
think,
your
oh, sorry.
nonprofit organization is Peoplehood United,
Yes.
and I put the link to the Facebook page on the
Thank you.
chat. If anybody's watching, you can look in the comments and connect
Great.
through that. Make sure you follow that page.
Thank you.
What could people do if they want to help you in this, like with this nonprofit, with the advocacy, just with getting word out about this?
Well, the approach of what I'm more felt to do is keep Peoplehood United as, more for like building partnerships. I would love, and just try to see what, the counties that are actually wanting like the team members. It's like I would love to be able to get those leaders who really want to do something, contact, we're going to have that information on our website. It's going to give information on that. And it's going to be our official website that's undergoing some changes. But it's going to have all that information on there for volunteering, as well as another factor is that I would love to be able to assist in helping to build some opportunities for even externships, you know, do that route as well for those individuals to see, um, getting that experience firsthand. And at the same time, like firsthand experience goes a long way. My story is going to be all underneath actually my LLC, which is Aces of Truth. Isn't that funny? Aces of Truth LLC. So my that's going to be coming out on YouTube. We're currently almost done, but it's more of the research, the background, my story. Peoplehood United is more focused on let's get the work done. Let's try to build some, it's like we don't want to have professionals out there in the mental health field focusing all their time and energy just to get the people to help. It's like, let us try to go, we're grassroots. I'm really praying, God, if this is meant to be, then the right donors and everybody else will go ahead and contribute because our ultimate goal would be to really have enough funds so we could collaborate with these county, leaders and help towards actually covering a lot of the marketing and even we could contribute however we can for the space. But it's most importantly, let's also get together, give those professionals the extra boost to let them know that you guys are needed. You don't have to be behind the desk and, thinking, oh, who am I going to contact? It's like, no, let's try to make it happen because when you're a survivor or you're, survivor and you're on trauma mode and you're busy parent, whether like mine, special needs, like you have no time. I'm all about a one-stop shop. Put everybody one place. Let me see. I'll shop around because I only got 1 hour. That's what I want, I want to make that happen for other people because I know there's a lot to get it. So
I
it's a
just
big
want to share a couple verses because I think
yeah,
this is really, what you're doing. So it is 2 Corinthians 1, and you probably heard this Bible verse, right? Starting with 3, it says, "All praise to God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others when they are troubled. We will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. For the more we suffer for Christ, the more God will shower us with his comfort through Christ. And even when we are weighed down with troubles, it is for your comfort and salvation. For when we ourselves are comforted, we will certainly comfort you. Then you can patiently endure the same things we suffer. We are confident that as you share in our sufferings, you will also share in the comfort God gives us, because we learn, right? We learn to say, hey, I don't want you to struggle. Like you were just saying, I want this a one shop. I want this, because you've struggled and you know what it's like. And so you can say, hey, I can come alongside you and I can show you how you can do it without having this whole extra world that you have to spin around.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I will say one of my scriptures that also was something that always stuck to my head. because I always felt like that's the word that God was trying to tell me was do not turn a blind eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like if something is not right or you're not stepping up and advocating or doing what you're supposed to, don't act like it's not going to come back.
Yeah.
Because when
Absolutely.
we don't, it's like God has a way, and that's why it's like we have to understand. Scripture calls for us to be compassionate, to love our neighbors, and even when you look in Leviticus, what is it, 19? Go to verses 2 to I think it's 34. But when you look in that whole thing, it breaks it down more of the commandments. And even when you look down to, the whole thing between Leviticus on 33 to 34, it talks about loving your neighbor, even if, they're Israelite or whatever, they're not from the same, a foreigner. You're supposed to
Yeah.
still love them and not to exclude.
Yeah.
And same thing for, the vulnerable populations, the sick, the poor, children. I mean, like there's so many out there and it's like, okay, if this is what's going to happen, let's try to create another mission to let more healing of what we could do to break the generational curses. So yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being with us, Michelle, and sharing. Um, the verse I had looked up before we got on tonight goes right along with what you were just saying. And God talks throughout the Old and New Testament about justice, and He
Yeah.
cares deeply for justice and that we do justice. That's what He wants from us. And Amos, and the print's real tiny on this Bible, so I might have to put my glasses on to be able to read this. But in Amos 5:14, he says, "Seek good, not evil, that you may live."
Mhm.
And he goes on in verse 24, and he says, "But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never failing stream." I love that verse. To just let justice roll on like a river. And so, thank you for that. And again,
Wow. That was like confirmation because I like was totally reading about, I think I read that one like last
well,
night or today. No, it was just confirmation for what you were just reading because it's been very strong in me where it's like justice. See, that there's something that we need to all work together. And if we don't join and, and I mean by for the greater good, we have to think about how it's going to impact the future and
yep,
especially the children who will one day be parents and have a whole new generation.
yep,
So we just got to pray for our children and we got to unite to help them to heal and break these stigmas. So thank
absolutely.
you.
You're welcome. So, Laura, will you wrap up with prayer and just pray over Michelle and
Yeah.
just this work that she's doing?
Heavenly Father, God, we're so thankful that we can come together, Lord, and be like-minded. You say, your word says that our spirits speak to one another, and that's how we know that we're children of God. And Lord, I'm just thankful for my sister in Christ, Lord. I'm thankful for Michelle, that she is able to talk about her healing journey. She's able to talk about these things that have happened in her life. But God, not only is she able to talk about it, but Lord, you have set a ministry that she can go out and help others that are struggling, Lord, just as in 2 Corinthians chapter 1. God, that we provide comfort that you've given us. We provide that for others. And Lord, I just want to thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving her this ministry. Thank you for, Lord, helping her to see, Lord, to have that vision of what needs to happen. And God, we just pray blessings over her. Pray blessings over her family, blessings over this ministry. God, we just pray, Lord, that she won't turn to the right or to the left, Lord, unless your voice speaks. And God, just drench her with the anointing and with God, just wisdom. And we give you all the praise, all the glory, Lord.